ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਅਕਾਲ ਚੈਨਲ ਦੇਖਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਾਰੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਜੀ। ਇਸ ਖਾਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ GCSE ਤੇ A ਲੈਵਲ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟਸ ਬਾਰੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਇੱਕ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਬਣ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਹੈ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਪੈਰੈਂਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੇ ਹੋਰ ਕਈ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ। ਇਹ ਵੱਡਾ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਬਣ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਲੋਕੀ ਹੁਣ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਕਨਫਿਊਜ਼ ਆ। ਦ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਆਰ ਕਨਫਿਊਜ਼ਡ, ਦ ਐਲਡਰ ਜਨਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਇਜ਼ ਕਨਫਿਊਜ਼ਡ ਐਂਡ ਇਟਸ ਜਸਟ ਕਾਜ਼ਿੰਗ ਅ ਲੋਟ ਮੋਰ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮਸ ਦੈਨ ਇਟ ਸ਼ੁਡ। ਪਰ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਆਈ ਕਿੱਥੋਂ ਆ, ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਰੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇੱਕ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੀ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਆਪਣੀ ਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਖਦੇ ਆ, ਵਿੱਦਿਆ ਵਿਚਾਰੀ ਤਾਂ ਪਰਉਪਕਾਰੀ। ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਆ ਰਾਗ ਆਸਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ 365 ਨੰਬਰ ਅੰਗ 'ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਹ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਦਰਜ ਕੀਤਾ ਆ। ਅਤੇ ਇਸ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹੀ ਆ, ਇਸ ਪੰਕਤੀ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਵਿੱਦਿਆ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਖੜ੍ਹਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਉਹ ਸਹੀ ਮਾਇਨੇ 'ਚ ਉਹ ਪਰਉਪਕਾਰੀ ਬਣ ਸਕਦਾ। ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਵੈਲ ਐਜੂਕੇਟਡ ਆ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਕੋਲ ਨੌਲੇਜ ਹੋਵੇ, ਉਹ ਬੰਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਸਹੀ ਮਾਇਨੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਪਰਉਪਕਾਰ ਕਮਾ ਸਕਦਾ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਆ ਇਹ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਨੋਟ ਕਰਨੀਆਂ ਚਾਹੀਦੀਆਂ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਕਰੋਨਾ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਓਬਵੀਅਸਲੀ ਕਈ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੀ ਰੋਕ ਲੱਗੀ ਗਈ ਆ, ਕਈ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਪਾਬੰਦੀਆਂ ਲਾਈਆਂ ਗਈਆਂ, ਪਰ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਵੀ ਅਫੈਕਟ ਹੋਣਾ ਸੀ ਕਰੋਨਾ ਵਾਇਰਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਇਹ ਕਈ ਲੋਕ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਛੋਟੀ ਮੋਟੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀ ਆ, ਪਰ ਹੁਣ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਨਿਊਜ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਆਇਆ ਹੁਣ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਕਾਫੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਇਸ਼ੂ ਬਣ ਚੁੱਕੀ ਸੀ। ਸੋ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਬੈਟਰ ਸਮਝਿਆ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਨੋਰਮਲ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਰੱਖਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਫॉर ਯੂਥ, ਉਹਦੇ ਥਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇਹ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਰੱਖੀਏ, ਖਾਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ ਕਿ ਆਖਰ A ਲੈਵਲ GCSE ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟਸ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪ੍ਰਭਾਵ ਪੈਣਾ ਯੂਥ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਹ ਕਿਹੜਾ ਪੈਣਾ। ਵਾਟ ਇਜ਼ ਦ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਦੈਟਸ ਦ ਯੂਥ the elders are now going to have to face because of these so-called results that have been published. So what is the real issue with the results? Well, really 40% of the A-level results last Thursday, A-level results ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਰਿਲੀਜ਼ ਹੋਏ ਆ, ਤੇ A-level results ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 40% ਘਾਟ ਦਿਖੀ ਆ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗ੍ਰੇਡਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਸੀ ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗ੍ਰੇਡਸ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਐਕਚੁਅਲ ਮਿਲੇ ਆ। ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਸੈਕਟਰੀ ਨਾਲ ਜਦੋਂ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਉਹ ਦੱਸਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਗ੍ਰੇਡ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਆ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ, ਦ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਦੈਟ ਦੇ ਯੂਜ਼ ਟੂ ਪ੍ਰੋਵਾਈਡ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਸ with the grades at the end of it, it was an algorithm put in place to ensure that everyone got fair results. So ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ equal results ਮਿਲਣੇ ਆ ਤੇ ਸਹੀ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਣਗੇ। ਪਰ ਦੁੱਖ ਇਸ ਗੱਲ ਦੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਕਈ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਲਈ ਇਹ ਸਕਸੈਸ ਹੈਗਾ, ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਇੱਥੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮਸ ਆਈਆਂ, ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾਤਰ ਇੱਥੇ ਵੱਧ ਇੱਥੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮਸ ਆਏ ਆ। ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕਾਫੀ ਆਂਕੜਾ ਆਈਆਂ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕਾਂ ਨੇ ਹੁਣ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਜਾਣਾ ਸੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੁਣ ਕੋਰਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਡਰੋਪ ਕਰਨੇ ਪਏ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਰਸ ਲੱਭਣੇ ਪਏ ਆ ਨਵੇਂ, ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿੱਧਰੋਂ ਨਵੇਂ ਕੋਰਸ ਲੱਭੀਏ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਂਟਰੀ ਰਿਕੁਆਇਰਮੈਂਟਸ ਆ ਉਹ ਹਾਲੇ ਤੱਕ ਹਾਈ ਆ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਦੇ ਨੋਰਮਲ ਸਟੈਂਡਰਡ ਆ। ਪਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆਮ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਹੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗ੍ਰੇਡ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਣੇ ਚਾਹੀਦੇ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਣ ਕਾਰਨ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਡਰੀਮ ਜੋਬਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਛੱਡਣੇ ਪਏ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਾਫੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਵਿਦਿਆਰਥੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਵੱਡਾ ਅਪਰੋਹ ਹੋਇਆ। A lot of the students were very annoyed about this. A lot of students took this to protest levels, where students were protesting in London outside the parliament as well to talk about this and to raise their awareness about this issue in the first place. This obviously led to then the education secretary Gavin Williamson to actually apologize for what happened. So ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ let's have a look at his apology video, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ apologize ਕਰਦਾ ਯੂਥ ਨੂੰ, ਮਾਂ ਪਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ, ਕਿ ਆਖਰ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਫਾਰਮੂਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਵਰਤਿਆ ਇਹ ਨਿਕਲਿਆ ਗਲਤ ਆ। ਆਓ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਛੋਟੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਵੀਡੀਓ।
Incredibly sorry for all those students who have been through this. When we came up with the system, which was broadly supported across the spectrum of calculated grades, what we were doing is to ensure that we have the fairest possible system, making sure that we look after the interests of all students. But when it became apparent that there were unfairnesses within the system, is the right thing to act. Over the weekend, it became clearer to me that there were a level of the number of students who were getting grades that frankly they shouldn't have been getting and should have been doing a lot better. And the evidence, both from Ofqual and other external bodies, was apparent that action needed to be taken. The first course would be to always make sure that we have the most robust and broad-ranging appeals process, and that's what we had worked to ensure that was put in place.
So Sangatji, in this video, you can see very clearly that obviously Gavin Williamson is very remorseful for this. But having said that, it's caused a lot more problems than it should have. And this was just university students who are dealing with their A-level results, college students who are going to go into university and then actually try and learn more and more about their own specific a type of job that they wanted to do, whether it was medicine, veterinary science, all those kind of different experiences that they wanted to have at university. Those have been hindered. Now, what has been put forward is this idea that now the government is saying that they will take back the results and that new results will be issued. The problem is, though, is that it's already August. Welcome week starts on the second or third week of September. So this has already caused the problems for A-level students, let alone the GCSE students who will be getting their new results this week as well. So I guess we'll find out more about that on Thursday. But as promised, we actually have a Sikh student who is coming in to talk to us as well about really what they kind of feel and the kind of issues that they're having to face now due to this whole mess up with these different results and things like that. And it has caused a lot of stress on students, families, and people in general, because they suffered mental health issues just from their results after working so hard. So our guest today is actually, his name is Ranjeet Singh, and he is a Sikh student who currently studies at a GCSE level and will hopefully be going on to college as long as all this stuff has been sorted out. ਆਓ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਫਤਿਹ ਦੀ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਈਏ ਜੀ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਇਸ ਕਾਫਲੇ ਨੂੰ ਅੱਗੇ ਵਧਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ। ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
Ranjeet Singh, if we just start off with a bit about yourself. So can you tell the Sangat a little bit about yourself?
So I'm 16. I'm currently studying in Wolverhampton. And yeah.
Yep. So Ranjeet, obviously one of the main problems with this kind of stuff is obviously, this really started with Corona, right? When the coronavirus hit,
Yep.
then this is the one thing that most people were concerned about, is their education and how it would affect. So when, how did you really feel when coronavirus struck and the schools had to be closed down? What was the kind of thought process that you were going through?
Well, obviously, initially there was some sort of panic.
Yeah.
As in, what next? What happens now? What is the government doing?
Yeah.
Also, the timing was a bit stressful too, as it was only 3 or 4 weeks before we would actually sit our GCSEs if they were to go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And, yeah.
Yeah. So this kind of stuff is really, it's stressful. And I think the one thing that the government doesn't understand is, as a student, there is a lot of pressure on you, whether it's from family, whether it's from teachers, whether it's from relatives, a wider family, other people. It is stressful. And, having to study in a way that is compromised, where people are saying that, examinations isn't exactly the best way to judge one's, actual educational prowess. So, this kind of stuff is a big deal, that the government was so reluctant to provide the correct results for A-level students. Now, obviously, as a GCSE student, obviously at the moment it doesn't affect you, but when you get your results this Thursday, how do you think this might impact your future?
Well, I didn't really think much of it at first when there were rumours that we were going to get a predicted grades anyway, as we already had a set of those. Mm-hmm. And the initial case was that we were going to get our teacher submitted grades, which obviously gave reassurance to everyone. Yeah. However, when they announced it was going to be made by an algorithm, and the algorithm was to decide basically our future, it was like a bit, why is this happening? Why can't they just stick to our teacher grades? Because at the end of the day, our teachers have known us for 5 years. Our teachers know us best. They know our ability. Yeah. So that would be the most accurate measure of grades. Yeah. So do you think this is more of a kind of the government is trying to do their own thing instead of thinking about how, the students actually are living? Because where we've seen past examinations as well, I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this. The exams that
you're sitting that I sat 2 years ago are a lot different from how people sat exams 10 years ago. The difficulty is completely different, right? So do you think this might be something that the government's, thinking of doing, maybe making education harder for people?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think they will make education harder, as there's already been, rumors in the press that the governments are trying to, cap the number of people going into university.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing there is some sort of like agenda about what's going on there with the government trying to do their own thing and limiting people's futures.
Yep, and obviously this sparked massive uproar, everywhere, especially because obviously GCSE results, like GCSEs can still be resat. With A levels, obviously when you do your A levels, your next plan is to go to university. So when your university is then put in jeopardy, it means that you literally end up wasting a year if you want to resit your A levels. So what do you think? All these protests that started to take place, how do you feel? Because I mean, as a student, this must be something that was extremely, something most students would have probably taken part in. Most students would have been ready as well, to maybe raise some violence, raise some hell. But what was your kind of thought process with these kind of protests?
I feel that the protests are very much needed, and not just for A levels and people applying to uni, but also for people studying GCSEs and hoping to continue into sixth form. It kind of brought students together and made them feel like they're not alone. It's not like one person got downgraded. It's most of the country got downgraded. And the results from the protest were actually promising. It was exactly what we wanted as students, for the algorithm to be scrapped. So more accurate grades would be given. People could actually go into uni now and continue to sixth forms.
Yeah, definitely. And then obviously, because the main reason why most people study in the first place is so they get a good job. Throughout school, all we hear is if you get a degree, if you get your education really well, then you'll get a really good job. That's the kind of system we've been brought up in. Now, not to take this to a sociological side, but, a lot of people tend to see, problems in this as well, that, trying to keep kids in some sort of system doesn't exactly work. But how do you think this might impact your future now because of these grades? Because obviously now you have results day on Thursday. So how are you prepared for your grades if they come out differently from what you expected them to be?
Well, my first point of call will be talking to sixth forms about like what can I do next if my grades aren't exactly what I needed them to be to get onto a course or to even get into the sixth forms, like general entry requirement. Then will the sixth form just deny me, or will they, offer an alternative course maybe? And as in terms of getting into uni after A levels, I feel like we're already at a disadvantage because most sixth forms are probably going to be very sort of laid back in the first couple of weeks, so people can settle back into education after 5 or 6 months off.
Definitely.
And that also means that we're missing out on what we need to learn due to the government's, cutbacks and stuff. So,
and if we look at statistics, because I was lucky enough to find some statistics on the actual grade boundaries so far for A levels and how A level students performed. Now, if we look at A level students at the moment, we look at their record of proportion of grades. The students who got from A stars to A's, there's actually been a raise in those, but it's 40% lower from what the teachers actually assess them to be. So, whereas what they got was still higher than it was in previous years, it could have been a lot more higher if they got what their teachers had predicted them. So, maybe this might be the case for students like you as well, who are studying GCSEs at the moment, who are still working hard. I mean, even now, how do your parents feel about this at the moment? I'm sure they're probably, really worried about this as well.
Yeah, my parents are also exact same as me. I'd say they have the same feelings as the students. Protesting or representing, the government has let us down at this point. And even though they have scrapped the algorithm which was causing problems, they should have done this a lot earlier than they did.
Yeah. So do you think this is then, so obviously a lot of students are throwing this straight onto the government, saying that, you know, this is clear-cut Tory party ideology of trying to keep, you know, classist, this kind of classist idea where only the elite people are allowed to go to university and everyone else is, you know, held back, or not everyone's allowed to go to sixth form. You know, that kind of mentality. Do you think that kind of mentality is being portrayed here?
Yep, I also looked at some statistics, and I've seen that Eton College in London, which was Boris Johnson's old school, they actually had no downgrades, and in certain cases they had some upgrades, which just shows that, you know, that there is a classist system being played here.
So, you know, again, and the other thing that was also very, very interesting is obviously during the apology video, Gavin Williamson actually mentions that, you know, the algorithm that they made was to make things fairer. You know, that they said that this was a perfect way of identifying that all students would get the fair grade that they deserved. But, you know, for teachers, people who've known you for so long, people who've educated you, people who know what you're capable of, do you think an algorithm could really match up to that?
No way, because a human, but a teacher, actually has a personal experience with you. They know your habits as well. They know, like, it's not just your academic work that's going to be, you know, put in place here. It's going to be everything, including, do they think you have the work ethic to match the grades they're giving you? An algorithm doesn't know any of that.
Definitely, yeah. So Ranjeet Singh, I'd like to thank you for coming on Akaal Channel today, out of you know, taking your time out your busy schedule to join us today. Fateh di saanj paunde ha ji, Waheguru ji ka khalsa, Waheguru ji ki fateh. So ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਾਲ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਸਾਰੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਤੋਂ ਸੁਣੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਰਿਜ਼ਲਟਸ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਬਣ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਆ, ਇਹ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਇੱਕ ਇਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਆ, ਇਟਸ ਨਾਟ ਜਸਟ ਅ ਸਿੰਪਲ ਇਸ਼ੂ, ਇਟਸ ਅ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ. ਇਹ ਹੁਣ ਕ੍ਰਾਈਸਿਸ ਬਣ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਆ because this is starting to affect people's, you know, general health. This is starting to affect people's, you know, general future as well. There was a report that was sharped the other day that actually highlighted that this has led to a lot of young students going into depression because they are now unsure of what their actual cases will be like, what their actual future will be like. So, you know, this is a really big, you know, issue. It's not just something that ਕੋਈ ਛੋਟੀ ਮੋਟੀ ਜੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਸੋਚਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਇੱਥੇ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਮਸਲੇ ਆ ਕਾਫੀ ਛੋਟੇ ਆ. ਇਹ ਕਾਫੀ ਵੱਡਾ ਮਸਲਾ ਬਣ ਚੁੱਕਾ ਆ ਬਿਕਾਜ਼ ਇਹ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਇਹ ਇਕੱਲੇ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਵਾਪਰਿਆ, ਇਹ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਵਾਪਰਿਆ, ਇਹ ਹਰੇਕ ਬੰਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵੀ ਬੱਚੇ ਆ, ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਭਰਾ ਆ ਭੈਣ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜੇ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸਿਟੀ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ A level ਪੜ੍ਹਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ GCSE ਦੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕਰਦੇ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮ ਹੈ ਇਫੈਕਟ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ. So this is affecting many people on a massive scale, and it's causing more and more problems than it is causing solutions. Now, obviously, Gavin Williamson actually said that he will take back these results, and in the future they will be providing new results for the A-level students. The problem is, though, is that a lot of people are not happy with the way that the government dealt with this in the first place, because many people were reassured, you know, based on the system that was already put in place, many people were reassured that the students would be getting the predicted grades from their teachers. These grades were based on past examinations that took place in schools under exam conditions that the students performed in. Now, taking these results and then trying to put them into an algorithm to make things more fairer, whereas most people have said that these have not made things fairer in the first place. So, you know, it's kafi vadda jehda hai ek gall hai. It's not just something very simple as, oh, the government misread exams. It's a very, very big deal that, you know, maybe this is actually a big sign for what the government's thinking of. If we look at past examinations, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਪਹਿਲੀ ਵੀ ਗੱਲ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨਾਲ ਕਿ past examinations ਜੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬਹਿਣੇ ਪਏ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਬਹਿਣੇ ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਰਣਜੀਤ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੇ ਕਰਨੇ ਸੀਗੇ, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮੀਨੇਸ਼ਨਸ ਆ ਜੇ ਅਸੀਂ 10 ਸਾਲ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਸਮਿਆਂ ਵੱਲ ਦੇਖੀਏ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ 10 ਸਾਲ ਪੁਰਾਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮ ਆ, ਜਿਹੜਾ OE ਸਿਲੇਬਸ ਆ, ਉਹ ਕਿੰਨਾ ਡਿਫਰੈਂਟ ਆ ਹੁਣ ਦੇ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ. not just because we've got new information, but because the difficulty has gone so much higher. Difficulty ਹੁਣ ਕਿੰਨੀ ਵੱਧ ਚੁੱਕੀ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਸ ਸਾਨੂੰ A ਜਾਂ A ਸਟਾਰ ਦੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗ੍ਰੇਡ ਆਉਣੇ ਸੀ ਉਹ ਜਦੋਂ ਐਗਜ਼ਾਮ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਤਾਂ ਫਿਰ ਉਹ C ਜਾਂ E ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ C ਜਾਂ D ਦੇ ਗ੍ਰੇਡਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਪਾਸ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਇਹ ਕਾਫੀ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੁੱਡ ਬੀ ਥਿੰਕਿੰਗ ਐਜ਼ ਵੈਲ ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਪੜ੍ਹਾਈ ਕਿਹੜੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਨੂੰ ਜਾ ਰਹੀ ਆ। ਹੁਣ there are some A-level courses, and this is government bans, that there are some A-level courses that are more difficult than the degrees. ਡਿਗਰੀਆਂ ਨਾਲੋਂ A-level courses ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਔਖੇ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕੇ ਆ। ਸੋ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਐਜੂਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਸਿਸਟਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਿਰ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਨੌਜਵਾਨ ਆ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਲੋਕ ਆ ਉਹ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਸਹੀ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਨਾਲ ਉਹ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਫਿਊਚਰ ਨੂੰ ਦੇਖ ਸਕਦੇ ਆ। At the end of the day, and nowadays people cannot get good jobs, good education without, people can't get good jobs and have a good life with good paying money without education. ਅੱਜ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਤਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਡਿਗਰੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਬੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਜੋਬ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਆ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਮਸੀ ਜੋਬ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਆ। So it's very, very difficult for people nowadays to get degrees, to get higher education in the first place. But they can't get higher education without their A-level results, without their GCSE results. So these kind of things have started to impact the future of all students across the UK. And this might be a worldwide thing as well. This might be in certain other areas of the world where people have created these kind of systems. What's interesting though is that the government thought this was okay in the first place. What should have been done is that the students' results should have been compared to what the teachers said and what their algorithm said. However, instead of comparing the two, they were just given straight results in the first place. So this was quite a dangerous game that the government played here. And, this, could have just been a simple mistake. It could have been a well, thought out plan. But however it was, it's definitely something that could affect a lot of people without them actually realizing it. Again, your future is held with education. If you don't have education, you will not have a good future. Your future will be in jeopardy. So, ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਆ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸੋਚਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਆ। All of us should be thinking about this kind of stuff really. What is this jeopardy now that has come with this education crisis? Because, again, this isn't something that should be taken lightly. A lot of students were protesting in London, in Birmingham, and in other areas outside government offices demanding that the A-level results be restored correctly. If the GCSE results that come this Thursday will be the exact same and in similar strengths, then this will cause even bigger problems, for the government as well. Because at the end of the day, students are not going to sit by when they have been working very, very hard for 5-6 years of their lives. They are not going to sit by and let their grades then to be washed away because of a silly algorithm that cannot be used in a correct way, right? So what should have been done is teacher predictions, exactly how the government promised, teacher predictions be given as student grades. Now, what does come up here as well is some people say that the teacher actual predictions weren't exactly fair. Some of them were based on emotions, things like that. However, as long as the students' work backs it up, that could have been a perfect solution to this problem, and we might not have even had this problem in the first place. However, again, because of issues with the government, failing to prepare for a situation beforehand, it has led to this massive uproar that has now taken place within the young community, within the student community, where people are now uncertain of what their future will hold. Universities have opened their clearing sections, and many people are still struggling to get places because their grades, people who were meant to get A stars were getting Ds. So this is a massive problem because their grades simply do not match up with what they should have got. And the universities they applied for beforehand, again, they do not match up with, their course requirements don't match up with what they should have got in the end. So this isn't some issue to be taken lightly. This isn't something that's just, hawa wali gal ya that you can just flick it and it will go away. It kafi vadda issue hai, sahjog chahida. And obviously, a lot of families are helping their children at this time as well. Which is बहुत चंगी गल है. मैंने काफियां कॉलां भी आईयां हैं ਜਿਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਾਫੀ ਜਣਿਆਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ, ਕਾਫੀ ਸਟੂਡੈਂਟਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਦੱਸਿਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੈਰੈਂਟਸ ਆ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਪੋਰਟਿਵ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਬਹੁਤ ਚੰਗੀ ਗੱਲ ਆ ਕਿ ਸਾਡੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪੈਰੈਂਟਸ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਆ ਬਹੁਤ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਇਸ ਡਾਰਕ ਟਾਈਮਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੂਰੀ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ। ਪਰ ਸਹਿਯੋਗ ਦੀ ਬਹੁਤ ਲੋੜ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਕਾਰਜਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇੱਦਾਂ ਦੀ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਬਲਮਸ ਆ, ਇਸ ਥਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਇਮੋਸ਼ਨਲ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਵੀ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਆ, ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਥਾਵਾਂ 'ਤੇ ਐਕਚੁਅਲ ਸਪੋਰਟ ਵੀ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਜਿੱਥੇ ਲੋਕ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਬਾਹਰ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਟੈਸਟ ਵੀ ਕਰਨਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਰੋਸ ਮੁਜ਼ਾਹਰੇ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਕਰਨੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ ਉਹ ਵੀ ਕਰਨਗੇ। ਸੋ ਸੰਗਤ ਜੀ, ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੀ ਸਮਾਪਤੀ ਹੈ ਜੀ। ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਵੀ ਦੇਖਿਆ, ਅਤੇ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਧਿਆਨ ਰੱਖਿਓ। ਮੇਕ ਸ਼ੋਰ everyone is happy with the results they've got. Good luck on results day to all the GCSE students who will be getting their results. I wish you the best of luck. Again, if there are problems with your results, make sure you get in contact with government agencies and things to see if there are any leeways now with your results, because again it should be possible. ਅਖੀਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਫਤਿਹ ਦੀ ਸਾਂਝ ਪਾਈਏ ਜੀ। ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਜੀ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਅਕਾਲ ਚੈਨਲ ਨੂੰ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰੋ। ਨਵੀਂ ਵੀਡੀਓਜ਼ ਦੀ ਨੋਟੀਫਿਕੇਸ਼ਨ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਬੈਲ ਆਈਕਨ ਨੂੰ ਕਲਿੱਕ ਕਰਨਾ ਨਾ ਭੁੱਲਣਾ।